Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double 18 Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Negishi. To my right on your screen, whether it's your phone or YouTube, on your computer, it is Ken Fang from the Awful Announcing, the associate editor of Awful Announcing, I should say. Ken, happy Sunday to you. How's your week been so far?
Oh, it's been busy, but happy to be on with you again, and happy to be with you on a Sunday. Of course, this being the dead week between the AFC and the NFC Championship games, and then now we have the Super Bowl coming up next Sunday. So kind of a little bit dead spot for sports. But
Yeah,
what's interesting is that the NFL seems to dominate no matter what. So we had a lot of interesting news from last.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, listen, a week from tonight, obviously, it's the Super Bowl. Just a reminder, unfortunately, we might have to do one on earlier week because I have to work on Sunday, uh, unfortunately, and I might not be available until probably around 8 o'clock locally. By then, it's probably almost a halftime by then. So we'll keep you updated. We might do one on Saturday, certainly with our Super Bowl picks and whatnot. So thank you as always for staying with us on this Sunday evening. All right, Ken, let's start off with the big news again with the NFL. Another latest one in the there's so much to talk about, of course. Another round of coaching hire has been announced, including your Cleveland Browns. They hired Todd Monken, the former Ravens OC, who had kind of a down year this past year, which of course led to the firing of John Harbaugh and his entire staff, which Monken was on his staff for a couple of years. Had a big role in the Lamar Jackson's development in 2024, but the offense as a whole regressed in 25 this past year. Does kind of led to the Ravens missing out on the playoffs and all of that. Monken was a finalist last year with the Chicago Bears job, which thankfully it went to Ben Johnson. But I think if Ben Johnson had snubbed the Bears and gone elsewhere, he would have been probably the second choice. He is a native of Wheaton, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. Has been a very good offensive mind. Had been a coach at, if I'm not mistaken, Southern Miss before. Had also coached at University of Georgia, won back-to-back national titles before going back to the NFL. Coincidentally, he was an OC with the Browns back in 2017 or 2019, I think, with Freddie Kitchens. I'm sorry. Had been with the Browns before, and now he's brought back again as a head coach at this time. Last week we discussed about the whole situation involving Cleveland Browns and their unique coaching search, where they said that essays were involved, personality questions, blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff, which kind of drew some snickers across the league now. Ken, give me your thoughts on Todd Monken. How do you rate this hiring?
Well, there could have been a better hire. Mike McDonald, who had a connection to Cleveland, was a top candidate, but who wants to write an essay? Who wants to write a silly essay as to why you want what's your vision? Or
Right.
you tell the team, you tell the person what your vision is. You don't need to write it. And we're not in grade school anymore. We're not in college anymore. You're not trying to write an essay to get hired, or you're not trying to write an essay to try and be, to go into grad school. This is
Yeah.
not. There's no need for this. So
Mhm.
Todd Monken, I guess, wrote the essay that got him hired. Jim Schwartz, who was a defensive coordinator, thought that he was going to be hired and have the inside track, and apparently packed his bags and walked out. I mean, if you're going to be a baby like that, get the hell out. I mean, Jim Schwartz is not a stand up guy. He of course had connections to New Orleans and of course the Bounty. So Of course, the silly bounties that got that got suspensions. It was just really really stupid. So I've never liked Jim Schwartz. He did a great job for the Cleveland defense, but
Right.
I don't think he was head coaching material. Although he has been a head coach in the past, he hasn't proven
Right.
them
With
that
the
he's going to be.
Lions, of course. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
he wasn't. He hasn't proven himself that he was going to be a great head coach. He's just one of those guys that would be a coordinator for life. And I don't know what gave him the thought that he was going to be the next head coach. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe he was told something, or maybe he got something in his head. But no, you're not the next head coach. And Todd Monken got it, and good for him. He's going to be the next. I'll give him a clean slate, even though he comes over from the Baltimore Ravens, so not my favorite team. But you know what? He gets a clean slate from me, so I'll see what he does. He's had some good. He's done some good work in the past. Monken has. He's known as a guy who can just done well. Although, of course, the last couple of seasons he's had the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson, and of course Derrick Henry, and didn't get them over the top. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what he can do with Shadur Sanders or whomever they have as quarterback. They'll probably have Deshaun Watson back again for another season, unfortunately. So we'll see where it goes from there. But Todd Monken, good luck to you, buddy. You have a situation where the Cleveland Browns are known for doing some strange things with management. So good luck to you. And like I said, he has a clean slate with me, and we'll see how he does, especially in a season that's going to be a year of transition for the Cleveland Browns. Well, every year is a year of transition for the Browns. They haven't proven that they can put a couple of great seasons together and get themselves to the playoffs, but we'll wait and see. We'll see what he does.
Yeah, I think you can definitely like Todd Monken's hiring, certainly, until he proves that he is not the coach. Whether it's on his own or whether it's just the Browns organization is so bad that even the good hiring on paper looks to be not something that the Browns fans like you are overtly excited about, and that's understandable because the Browns certainly have. While the whole essay and the whole thing might be a little bit overblown, everything that they have done up to this point, whether it's missing out on the Rooney Rule candidate and having to go through this extended period of time to kind of settle for Todd Monken seems like a gut punch, just like basically a slap in the face for the Browns fans who were hoping somebody more exciting and somebody that's a little more I would say maybe young in the Ben Johnson mode, or somebody who is certainly much more proven, like John Harbaugh-esque. But now you have to go with a coach who is 59, closing in on his 60 years old, and a first-time head coach in the NFL level. And there is certainly a trepidation as to, how much of a leeway does a man have, versus somebody, who is younger and may need a little more time. Like Nate Shieldhouse's name was always been linked, even though he has never called plays in the NFL level for some reasons. And then the Jim Schwartz situation was an utter embarrassment. And I totally agree, about him being like a serious head coaching candidate for one, and then having literally pull the rug underneath Schwartz and saying, we're going with Todd Monken, sorry. And then Schwartz is upset enough that, he wants to leave the Browns. And that's understandable. I think Jim Schwartz, with a man of his pedigree in terms of being a defensive coordinator, he can go elsewhere now. He can go to Philadelphia, where Vic Fangio, I think, is almost
he
ready.
Said he's not retiring. He said he's going to stay. Vic Fangio has said he's going to stay.
Okay, that's the report I was seeing, but we'll get to that a little bit later. And then, he could go to San Francisco too, where they need a replacement for, Robert Saleh, who by the way, ended up leaving to go to become the next head coach with the Tennessee Titans this week also. So he does have options, Jim Schwartz. And, the way that Browns handled this whole situation with Jim Schwartz is also an utter embarrassment. Not because of, the fact that Schwartz shouldn't be really a head coach because of the job that he did with Myles Garrett this past year. But, there are other better coaching candidates, to be honest with you. And then forcing the coaching candidates to say, you got to keep Jim Schwartz one way or another. I don't know how that, is going to be well received by people who want to, normally bring their own people. So in a way, you could like how the Browns ended up hiring, Todd Monken, but you could also hate the fact that, you had to include Jim Schwartz, not only as a head coaching candidate, but also forcing the candidates to say, you got to keep Jim Schwartz. You're just limiting your pool. And it took such a long time to finally come to that conclusion. I understand that, Todd Monken being a 59, 60 years old, wanting a shot at being a head coach. Oh, by the way, I apologize. 49ers hired former Falcons head coach Raheem Morris today that just appeared on the ESPN tracker. So obviously Jim Schwartz's options are, starting to narrow down. So it will be interesting. Monken decided that he will go along with whatever the Andrew Berry and, Jimmy Haslam was telling him to do. So, this is probably his only shot at being a head coach in the NFL level. But we'll see if Todd Monken can certainly keep Jim Schwartz, which would be a huge win, despite all the, the anguish and the, Jim Schwartz being upset over how he was, screwed by the Cleveland Browns organization. So,
well,
we'll see what happens.
If I'm Todd Monken, why would I want to bring a disgruntled defensive coordinator back? I would just, if it were me,
that, yes.
if it were me, I would just say, hey, look, if he doesn't want to be here, let him go. We'll get somebody else. We can find somebody. I got enough connections in my own travels around the NFL and college that I can find somebody. So,
right.
Is it an ideal situation? No. But again, Jim Schwartz has proven himself that he's not a stand-up guy. And I've said that, and I felt this all along. So, I just don't feel he's I don't know if you want this guy. He's disgruntled. He's a guy that again, he was involved in the New Orleans Saints bounty situation. He's been all over the place. So I would rather see him, just say, hey, look, I know you want to have your people in, but let me get one of my guys in, at least for this position. It's important. We want to have the guys. I mean, as much as the guys like playing for Jim Schwartz, we'll get a guy who can get them and play a good system. So, I just cut a fish and cut bait with him. I really would. I would rather do that than have him bring him back. And besides, here Jim Schwartz could be a guy who wants to stab Todd Monken in the back and down the road. So I wouldn't put it past Jim Schwartz. I really wouldn't. So I just say, let me get another guy in there or hire another guy and just let Jim Schwartz just leave the building. If he wants to pack up his things and go, lock the doors, change the locks on the building in Berea, and then just say, hey, get the hell out of here and don't come back. And we'll send your things. We'll mail your things to wherever you want to move to. So get out, Jim Schwartz. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. We'll be very curious to see how this turns out. Whether or not the meeting between Monken and Schwartz will take place, and if Schwartz will spurn, Monken and the Browns, and basically decides to resign and just basically leave. Hopefully, there is no Joe Woods in the names of the new DC for you, because I know he didn't do a good job for you guys before Jim Schwartz took over. So it will be very interesting to see. So now it looks as though the only team that is still without a head coach, at least up until this morning or early this afternoon, was the Raiders and the Cardinals. The Raiders are maybe going with the Seahawks OC Clint Kubiak,
The
the
Cardinals, I
son
think,
of
hired
yeah, it looked like that. Well, Clint Kubiak is the guy. That's the guy. Seahawks OC, certainly the son of Gary Kubiak, also former Texans coach,
yeah, Mike,
and I think he was a. Um, I think he was the head coach who won the Broncos of the last Super Bowl, right? With Peyton Manning. Oh no,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, that was that. Yeah,
yeah,
that was
Mike,
that. Yeah, that was that.
yeah, Mike LaFleur is the new head coach of Arizona. Just announced last about this afternoon.
Right.
So
So
Mike,
every head
Mike,
coach is pretty much hired at this point now,
yeah,
thankfully.
yeah,
Who's the best hire in your opinion of all this search
probably
this year?
Harbaugh, probably John
John
Harbaugh by the
Harbaugh, right?
Giants.
I agree.
I would think so. I think a good move by the Giants, and the fact is that he did it rather quickly. He assessed what he wanted to do, and I think the Giants, if they give him, I mean, first of all, we talked about it last week, but what the fact is that he's got Jackson Dart, he's got Scatterbo, and he's also got a great receiver there. So he's got a holy trinity there, and also if he could get that defense stabilized, I think that this could be one of the best hires in this decade in the NFL because John Harbaugh is a known quantity. He's won a Super Bowl, and he's going to be in the largest media market, and he can handle the media pretty well. So I think he has a great chance here for um, for the Giants, and I think it's a great hire by the New York Football Giants to bring John Harbaugh in to stabilize that franchise because ever since Tom Coughlin left, the Giants have been in a state of flux and have been a laughing stock. So I think to get John Harbaugh in will stabilize that franchise, and if they can get the proper people in and proper personnel, I think he's going to be there for a long time to come.
Mhm. I would agree. I would also give a high grade to, the Ravens hiring Jesse Minter, the DC from the Chargers. I think, it's a good candidate. Ironically, he was a DC under, John's brother Jim for the last few years, as you
Mhm.
know. Um, he also has a bit of a baggage, of course, you know, with the University of Michigan, having followed Jim when he took over the Chargers job, with the what was that Michigan problem? You know, the
Sign gate, sign gate.
yeah, the sign gate. Yes, so he was heavily involved in that scandal himself as well. Very interested to see what he does, with the team, that is very veteran laden. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson is no longer what you call a young, young guy anymore, per se. Certainly, I think John Harbaugh's tenure, fair or not, kind of like run its course, along with Mike Tomlin's, tenure also. But you better hire somebody who is competent, and hopefully Minter can help Ravens get back on their feet quickly. And it's a division that's not exactly super loaded. You have two other new coaches in that division. Your Browns with Todd Monken and Mike McCarthy with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is unfortunately what I consider to be a head scratching hiring. Certainly
That's a
because
straight.
yeah, a Pittsburgh native certainly, has a extensive record, coaching the Packers and the Cowboys, and now he gets to coach the Steelers in his hometown. Certainly, I think it's a division that's still winnable for Baltimore if they get the right players and the right system in place. So, very curious to see how many people like Minter, does replacing a legend like John Harbaugh there. All right, let's move on to the next story. Ken, this is something that came out today, I believe. The talk of the ESPN merger with the NFL Network. You probably have a good story or a better feeling for this one. Give me your, a lowdown on this one, and then how the government kind of came quickly to approve this merger.
Yeah. So last year, the NFL owners approved a deal that ESPN would get to take over NFL Network
Yeah.
in exchange the NFL would get a 10% stake in ESPN, but ESPN in this deal, which we thought at Alpha announcing that this would take a little bit longer. There was a
Yeah.
chance it would be approved, and it got approved last night. But there was also the talk that this could take longer. It could go into next year. If that would be the case, ESPN wouldn't take over until 2027. But in this case, they got governmental approval pretty quickly, and this is pretty interesting because, as we know, the Trump isn't necessarily a big fan of Disney and ABC, but it came pretty quickly. ESPN now gets to take over NFL Network pretty right now, as a matter of fact. All NFL Network employees become ESPN employees. So Rich Eisen is back with ESPN.
Okay.
So that also means that ESPN gets control of the 7 games that NFL Network will air, but it will be only aired on ESPN. It'll only be aired on NFL Network. So like those international games that are currently, like the 7 games that are currently on, that are like from London and Germany and Ireland, those games that have been aired on NFL Network will stay there. Interestingly enough, remember that in this new contract, ESPN had 4 games that were under Monday Night Football. They had it as a doubleheader, or they aired them concurrently, or they aired them on staggered starts. Well, those games now are going to be freed up. So that means in the 2020 that the NFL now has a chance to sell those 4 games. They will be standalone games, most likely be played on a Saturday late in the season. But now here's a chance for the NFL to sell it to a streamer like Netflix or Amazon or Google for YouTube, or maybe a network says, "Hey, let's prevent this from going to a streaming service. Let's get these 4 extra games and add to our inventory." So maybe NBC says, "Hey, love to have those games and have them on Saturday night," adding them along because, as you know, NBC is relying heavily on sports. Just tonight, they're starting Sunday night basketball package through the NBA. They're also going to have Sunday night baseball. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a network like Fox or NBC decide, "Hey, let's get 4 extra games under our belt and get to make it part of our package." So we'll see what happens with that. But overall, this happened late last night. It was kind of like a news dump. Andrew Marchand of The Athletic found out about it, broke the news, and we put it up on our website last night on Awful Announcing. So in a nutshell, ESPN will take over NFL Network. They also will have the right to license NFL Red Zone. NFL Red Zone will remain as part of your cable package or YouTube TV. You'll be able to watch it there. But now ESPN gets to license the Red Zone name, so they can use it on a college football Red Zone channel, or an NHL Red Zone channel, or an NBA Red Zone, so they can use it for whatever they want. And ESPN will now be able to have NFL Network, and they can have it as part of their ESPN Unlimited app. So keep a lookout for that. That will probably happen sometime before. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like ESPN putting NFL Network under their app probably very soon. So I would expect that to be happening very soon. So that's just basically what happened. But those 4 extra NFL games that ESPN had as part of the NFL doubleheader, you can forget about those. There'll be no more NFL Monday Night Football doubleheaders, which really pissed off a lot of people because they said, "Hey, why is one game on ABC? Why is there another game on ESPN?" Those go by the wayside. You'll just have one game on Monday nights, and those 4 extra games will be sold to somebody else.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that will still. So no more Monday night doubleheaders, then you say, right?
No more doubleheaders. They were very unpopular. People didn't like watching them. People didn't like seeing one game on ABC and another game on ESPN.
Right.
ESPN,
and it was usually late games on ESPN too, right?
They tried. Well, they did that in the first week 1 in the last contract, but they decided to try to do it. They tried it once this year, and again, people just didn't like it. So we'll know we won't see any more of that. So
My
again,
goodness.
you'll just see one game on ESPN or maybe simulcast on ABC as they did in throughout the season, and that I think people prefer that than seeing two games on Monday night. So don't have to
Yeah.
worry about that anymore. And like I said, NFL Network will continue to air 7 games. That is an agreement they have with all the cable companies for them to for all the cable companies to providers to run them. So you will see that 7 games, most likely international package until the NFL decides to sell an international package when they go to the game schedule. So we'll see.
Yeah, thank goodness, because I know a lot of times the games involving West Coast teams at 10:15 Eastern on ESPNs were, just a killer for most people. Having to watch two games that are happening still simultaneously towards the end of the game versus the early first or second quarter and whatnot. So it would have been difficult for many people to stay up and watch those games moving forward, which made absolutely no sense, none whatsoever. So hopefully, I'm glad that's done. We'll see how the changes affect the broadcasting and and everything starting this year moving forward. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one, of course, was the hot button topic this week. Of course, it's the Bill Belichick being snubbed from the Hall of Fame, which actually was shocking and surprising to the eyes of many people. Obviously, there were several voters who came out of the woodworks and revealed themselves why they didn't vote. Of course, that was featured in your website as well. Awful announcing Bob Chappell of Indianapolis Star. Surprise, surprise! The Colts versus the Patriots rivalry were always been a huge storyline back when Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were facing each other in the early 2000s. Of course, this was all revealed because Bill Polian, the former NFL executive who's in the Hall of Fame, revealed that he didn't vote and he had some sort of a sway. And then he later revealed, well, I didn't say that and then I didn't, influence anybody. And then he later revealed that he voted, which is, voted for Bill Belichick and all of that, which is how convenient for an old dudes like that to, pretend that he said one thing and then just swerved to the other. But that's not the point. The point is, it seems as though the snub is being openly celebrated. I here in Detroit area, I listen to 97.1, which is a flagship Lions radio station. It's kind of like and it's the only radio station, kind of like sports radio station in this town right now. And there's this guy named Mark Ryan who does late nights and then the weekends. Openly celebrated. He deserves to be punished for it. Okay. My question is, of course, this is in relation to the Spygate and, of course, the Deflategate, two highly involved incidents that the Patriots were involved in, were punished for. All of those two things happened under Bill Belichick's tenure.
Well, okay.
And my question is this. I understand that, there's an argument on both sides about him being punished. Of course, I think they lost the picks and all of that kind of stuff. It seems to fit the punishment itself. But my point is, does the voters, who are part of the media, voting process openly, admitting that this is maybe a punishment, and then the media people like Mark Ryan of the 97.1 openly, rooting for him being punished? Does this seem like a fair process and fair process in your opinion? Because obviously with the media being what they are and not just limited to sports these days, I just don't know if media openly trying to punish him for what they did in the past doesn't seem to fit the crime, in my opinion. What is your feeling on this?
Well, there seem to be three schools of thought on this. So one was to allegedly punish Belichick for Spygate and Deflategate. The second was that there were some Hall of Famers who were in their last year of eligibility. So some voters decided to vote for them and say, hey, well, we know Belichick's going in this year. What's wrong with me voting and leaving him off my ballot? Well, as we found out, Belichick was you were supposed to get 40 votes a minimum to get to the Hall of Fame. He apparently fell short by one. So 11 voters, 11 people, 11 reporters left him off the ballot. Now, the third case was that this was in protest of the process, okay, of the voting process. So it was either to punish Belichick for Deflategate and Spygate, try to vote in some Hall of Famers who are in the last year of eligibility, or three, protest the process. Okay, the whole voting process, because Belichick was also some people feel that there's 1 year of waiting period was it's for a coach, whereas it's 5 for a player. And also some people feel that, why would I vote for Belichick when there's a possibility he could come back to the NFL? Well, that's not your job. Your job is not to worry about what's happening in the future. Your process is to vote based on the record and what the rules are for eligibility. I can understand if you wanted to say, all right, I want to vote a couple of other guys that are in their last year of eligibility because I only have 5 votes. And I know that Belichick is a Hall of Famer. He's a sure thing. I'll leave him off my ballot. I'm sure there's going to be other voters who are he's going to have to get enough votes. Well, this was a perfect storm. And as we mentioned, 11 people left him off his ballot, their ballots, and he fell short by 1 vote. That's really, really strange, and it's not your job to punish him for something. You're not the judge and jury, okay? You are there to vote based on what you see. Now, if you wanted to vote him off, leave him off because you wanted to vote someone else in, that's fine. That's your right. You can do that. I don't have a problem. And Vehi Gregorian, who is from the
Kansas City Star. Yeah,
he did. And I don't have a problem with that. That's you felt that, you wanted to get a couple of other people in, thinking that other people would leave Belichick on the ballot. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But again, protesting the voting process, that's not your job. Okay. If there's other ways to get to protest and try to change the voting process, but it's not your job to be judge and jury. Okay. That is not your job. So, has Belichick pissed off reporters by snubbing them or being snide with them? Yes. But you have to put that aside. Was Belichick a jerk to a lot of players?
The reporters, especially in press conferences, yes.
Players,
duly noted.
Executives. So a lot of former Hall of Famers do have a vote, like Bill Polian, okay? But Polian apparently put that aside and voted for him, okay? So that's fine. But again, you are not judge and jury. If you are you do not have that. It's not your job to be the judge.
You can't go both ways. You can't go both ways.
No. But like I said, if you wanted to keep him off the ballot because you wanted to vote someone off, to vote someone in, I don't have a problem with that because you're making a thought and you're trying to make some type of process, trying to make your think. I don't mind that thinking. I don't, because you're trying to see where you can vote somebody else in and another year of and they're at the end of their eligibility. That's fine. But again, the whole process is flawed. We know this. They ended up a few years ago, because they didn't want 7 or 8 Hall of Famers going in at once, they reduced it to 5. But now you're in this log jam of trying to get people in. And now by preventing Belichick from getting in this year, you're also preventing a coach from getting in who deserves it for next year. So because now Mike Tomlin is going to be eligible next year. Now, of course, he may come back. We don't know. But it's just you're causing another logjam and for players now, and also too, with this thinking, do you do this to Tom Brady because he was part of Spygate and Deflategate?
Exactly.
Do you punish the owner, Bob Kraft, who is also eligible this year. Do you decide to do that? If you're going to do that, then you have to do that to every single Patriot who's going to be up for election in the Hall of Fame. Because if you're gonna make that process with Belichick, you're going to have to do it with every single Patriot who is up for eligibility who played for Belichick. So I don't know. It's one of the dumbest things that I've heard of. It's what's interesting is that, of course, you're going to have this coming into the Patriots Super Bowl, who they just left, who I'm sure they've arrived in in the Bay Area already, because they left this morning from Providence to go to Santa Clara for the Super Bowl. San Francisco, I should say. They went to San Francisco, but it's just one of the dumbest stories. But it's going to be one of the biggest stories going into Super Bowl week because the Patriots are there, and now who's going to have to answer for it? Bob Kraft, who doesn't have a very good relationship with Bill Belichick. So that's going to be a lot of questions, especially during during the media blitz tomorrow, during media day tomorrow, which starts tomorrow night in Santa Clara. But it's one of the dumbest things, and it's shocking. This never should have happened. I mean, sure, has Belichick acted poorly, especially over the last year in North Carolina? Yes, but again, you don't punish him for that. You have to vote based on his record, and he should have been in the Hall of Fame. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
No question about that. Right. I get it. Everybody has an agenda now these days, and I find it ironic that, these voters who are voting, out to kind of like in protest of the process is when they're the ones who are exposing themselves and making it look bad as well. And I under the argument about really, so who cares? He's going to be voted, eventually, maybe next year. Or like, well, Randy Moss and, Terrell Owens, they paid a price for being jerks off the field too, all these years. And it took them a long time as to be voted in officially. But obviously that's comparing apples to oranges, because it's a different process for coaches versus the players themselves. So, but does the media have to play a role in trying to, punish these people out of because of their past dealings with it? I don't feel like again, like you said, it's not their job, nor they should, because obviously, again, the hypocrisy is being exposed for what they did. When they think that they're trying to send a message, but in fact that it's a system that's very much flawed. And that the number of Hall of Famers that should already be in are eventually going to suffer from this. When they should have been in a long, long time ago. People like Torrey Holt. Let's see. The other receivers who have been snubbed, or Reggie Wayne already got in, thankfully, but Torrey Holt is still stuck there. It took Isaac Bruce a long time to overcome because of obviously the log jams at receivers in the era. Yeah. Because there's always this weird rooting interest among the writers themselves either. So before these writers start lecturing us fans or other media members about their voting and how they cast it, maybe perhaps it's important for them to take a hard good look at themselves in the mirror moving forward. All right, Ken, let's see. I wanted to go to our final word segment. We'll get to our Super Bowl picks maybe next Saturday when we do the game moving forward. I got a couple of things that I wanted to get off my chest. This year, of course, is the year of World Cup 2026, and we are all excited. At least I'm very excited about this. We've talked about the USMNT, the U.S. Soccer Federation, the Pochettino, blah blah blah, and so forth. The issue, of course, has been the FIFA and the bungling of the expensive ticket prices. Recently, one of their star players, Tim Weah, whose father is a former Ballon d'Or winner, George Weah, from Liberia, currently playing in Marseille in French League On, just like his father did. So Pochettino slammed Tim Weah, who was asked about the expensive ticket price. Who Weah actually voiced concerns about the World Cup high ticket prices because you want many people to support USMNT, and especially you want to, you want the fans to come in. Unfortunately, given the current political climate, it seems very remotely impossible nowadays. So, Pochettino came out and slammed on Weah to, basically that's not his business of speaking on it. I'm about to play a clip from Herc Gomez from ESPN FC. This is an 8-minute clip, but I'm not going to play the entire 8 minutes. But I'm going to pause at some point where Herc makes his point. So, I want you to give me a listen and your thoughts on the situation. Okay, I'm going to play this clip. So give me a minute.
Cup prices, and he said, look, I think it is disappointing that they are that expensive. Well, his head coach, Mauricio Pochettino, didn't really like him speaking out about it. This is what he had to say. First of all, I think players need to talk on the pitch, playing football, not outside of the pitch. It is not his duty to evaluate the price of the tickets. We are not politicians. We are sport people that only we can talk about our job. We need to be focused on the sports side and trust the organization that is in charge of soccer or football around the world that they are going to do the right thing.
Okay, I'm going to pause here first of all, Pochettino is being a hypocrite because the sports organization that he's referring to is FIFA, which we know that has been a long history with the corruption. And for him to tell the FIFA to trust them is such a hypocrite. I'm going to continue now.
All right. Interesting stuff then from Poch. All I have to say is, Mauricio was going so well because, guys, I mean, I'm going to get your opinion soon, but this I feel like is plunging us back into the dark ages where he's kind of saying to Tim Weah, stay in your lane, shut up and play. And I think we have grown a lot from that, where we have seen athletes able to speak about worldly things. So to hear this from me, it's a bit disappointing coming from Mauricio Pochettino. But Shaka, what did you make of it?
Disappointing is about as nicely as I can phrase it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. Athletes have been using their platform for quite some time. The challenge to athletes using their platform has been debunked continuously, given what's happening off the field politically. It couldn't be more tone deaf. Everything about this struck just to put or describe it as an incorrect chord is not doing how ridiculous it is justice. This is hearkening back to 60 or 70 years ago.
Yeah.
This is beyond belief that in 2026 we have somebody like Mauricio Pochettino, given the position he holds in this country, with its history of activism, of athlete activism, in this moment, making this statement. So I'll finish as I started, just to say it's disappointing, is as understated as I possibly can be.
Hark?
It's very well stated by Shaq. It's the U.S. men's national team, the country, what it's supposed to represent. Land of the free, home of the brave. Except right now he's saying you don't get the free speech. And he's equating to a political statement, which it is not.
No.
Timothy Weah expressed what many global citizens today have been expressing, that this World Cup has turned corporate, that the average person, that the fan, it was the game of the people, is no longer the game of the people. It's the game of the rich. Thousands of dollars for single game day tickets to the World Cup. And here is one of the players on your team, few players with World Cup experience that have scored a goal in the World Cup, voicing their opinion how they'd like their people, their fans, in general, people of all races, colors, to enjoy the game. And you're saying, shut up and dribble. Oh, and by the way, the person who is saying this, the most tone-deaf individual, $6 million a year, the highest paid person in the U.S. men's national team or U.S. Soccer Federation's history, who was imploring fans to come out and support them. Please come out and support us, he was saying. Come to the games. Show how much you mean to us. Show how much you want us to do well. Is now saying, Tim, on the field, do what you're supposed to. We're not politicians. The lack of self-awareness, the lack of ability to read the room, to understand the moment, to have simple media training and say, you know what? We want all types of people. We want everybody to be able to afford and enjoy the game. And instead, he chooses this route. And without getting political, I fear that most will mistake this as being political.
Yeah.
And if there are people out there who don't want to mix politics and sport, that's what sports have been like through the inception, to the beginning of sports. They've always been intertwined, but this is not political, and people are going to make this political because Mauricio Pochettino is making it a shut up and dribble type of thing.
All right, Ken, I'm going to add some context to this. First of all, Mauricio Pochettino is an Argentinian. The country of Argentina, from what I know, historically has never been, had a very political, has never had like a stable political situations. We know the movie Evita with Madonna, and with the current regime, Javier Milei, I believe that's how he pronounced it. He's a hardcore MAGA, obviously being supported by Trump and Elon Musk's of the world's right now, running the country to the, ground, to the core. And it's a country that also where, a bunch of German Nazis escaped prosecution to, live in Argentina with the help of Argentinian regime and so forth. So Pochettino should be the last person to talk about, not being political in all of this. And Herc Gomez is right. Pochettino is the same person who wanted the U.S. fans and spoken about how the U.S. soccer fans, they need their support and they needed to come out in tickets. Well, does it hit on him how expensive those tickets, even on the U.S. men's national team, friendlies in other stadiums are? They're charging $300 against the likes of Bolivia and the countries that you've never heard of on a weekdays, and then you wonder why the U.S. men's national team, in all honesty, this is my personal opinion, they will never be able to achieve the same level of success and support that the U.S. women's national team has always enjoyed, despite the fact that there's a salary differences and the lack of the support, and always been treated like a stepchild compared to men's national team, which obviously has never achieved a greater success in recent years, or even for the last couple of decades, and so forth. So for somebody like Pochettino to pretend like he cares, about growing the support, and then telling people, to somebody like Tim Ware of all people, you're one of your star players, to shut up and dribble, kind of stinks, does sound hypocritical. I'll give the floor to you, Ken.
Well, I didn't know about this story, Stephen. I have to admit, this is the first I'm hearing of it. It is tone deaf by Pochettino to make that type of statement. You want fans to come to your game. And what Timothy Weah was saying was nothing out of hand, at least in my opinion.
Exactly.
I think he was saying, hey, look, I want you to come to our games. I want you to be able to attend. And he was saying it's unaffordable. And again, we're talking about that word affordability. You're talking about the possibility of fans being priced out. And we talked about this on the show. So I really feel that this is a bad move by Pochettino by telling him to say shut up and dribble. It wasn't a political statement. It was just saying, hey,
No,
look, it's really bad. It's a bad look if we price out the regular fan. And this is what's happening
exactly.
also in WWE. It's happening in a lot of other sports. The ticket
Exactly.
prices are to the point where they're unaffordable. And a family
Right.
of four has to take out 3 or 4 paychecks and save up in order to attend a game. And I honestly don't know, Steven, who can afford these games. I'm looking at the prices and in Foxborough, and they're like $5,000 for a group game. Why? Why is it why is it so high? It's unnecessary. I mean, and there's
They're
a reason
catering
why.
to the wrong crowd. As Herc said,
Yeah.
it's going corporal, and they're catering to the wrong crowd, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I don't know who's going to be able to attend these games, and especially with the political situation and with ICE being supposedly going to be over at a lot of being the security, a lot of these games. I don't know who from Europe or from Africa
South
or from
South America, or even Asian countries.
America
Yeah.
who would want to attend these games. I know that they'll probably be sold out because they'll show a sold out crowd in Foxborough or Philadelphia or in wherever Atlanta, Miami. They'll show sold out crowd because it'll be all corporate people, but it's not going to be a fun crowd especially for
No.
a crowd of soccer as we've seen in the past. One of the whole thing
Right.
about the atmosphere, one of the things I know was annoying in South Africa with the vuvuzela, but I thought it was
Yeah.
a great atmosphere because fans from all over attended the South African World Cup in 2010. It was a fun atmosphere. I'm afraid we're going to be losing that in the United States this year.
No, I'll get to that corporate side of it because obviously, there was some ugliness that came out of it yesterday and then this week. Just to kind of hit it off, to close out the show. World Cup tickets are going for as much as $230,000. You and I, and then those who are watching this, can never attend this type, can never afford this much because this is like a paycheck for maybe for several years worth for some people. And then this week's Super Bowl is going $600,000 or even $100,000. Only a handful of people can go. Only the tech bros or the rich people. This is a very good video. I'm not going to play 12 minutes of it. I want people to understand.
Is it Steven, copyrighted? Because we have to be careful. We got a copyright strike last week. You have to be careful. Is it where is it coming from?
It's coming from a site called More Perfect Union. This is their own video.
Okay, you can go ahead and play it.
No. This is 12 minutes. It's too long. It's too long, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, you can see it on there.
They will explain the mechanism of it, and then why the U.S. consumers are being screwed, and and how the billionaire owners are screwing the fans out of it. So again, this is a 12-minute video. This is their own site called the More Perfect Union. I hope you have a time to take a good look at it and how the the mechanism is in place, because going to sporting events shouldn't be this expensive, unfortunately. And a lot of us are forced to stay home and watch it. And now a lot of games are unfortunately on the streaming platforms where you have to pay $20, $30 a month just to watch a few games, which makes even less of a sense, unfortunately. So, I hope the soccer, not just the soccer in general, but the sports fans, consumers here in America. I know we posted something about ex-ESPN writer June Lee wrote about the gambling aspect of it and all of that stuff. Why the U.S. The sports consumers are being screwed and all of that kind of stuff. Remember that, Ken, a while ago?
Yep.
Yeah, this is in that same line of thoughts to here. So I hope that the fans who are being screwed and wonder why the tickets are so expensive and why the streaming service are continuing to go up and we are forced to pay. I hope they take a very good look at this video. Unfortunately, we're not going to play 12 minutes of it. So, Please, if you've been always wondering why the fans are always being screwed and having to pay this, and who can even afford to pay this, take a good lesson, and I hope we all get educated from this. Ken, anything else for you?
Yeah, the Winter Olympics will be starting this Friday with the opening
Yep.
ceremony. The main thing that I have been worried about is the hockey arena, which has been built not to NHL specifications. It's been built 3 feet narrower than the regular NHL rink. Also, they did some test events in there. There are some facilities that are lacking. NHL players and the women's international hockey teams are going to be playing there. This is the first time the NHL has been back since Sochi. So you would, and with all the preparations that Milan and Cortina had, you would think they would have this, that they would have known that this arena would have been lacking in several amenities and also short 3 feet. But still, they're going to be playing on this arena. Well, you can say, well, it's only 3 feet narrower or 3 feet shorter. What's the difference? Well, if you're used to be playing on a regular NHL rink, 3 feet is a big difference. So it's something to be watching. We'll see what happens. The ice, when they did a test event in January, it didn't go very well. The ice wasn't necessarily up to regulations. Several facilities were not built. Bathrooms were still not built. So it's something that's going to be watched, that bears watching. Some hockey games are going to be played before the opening ceremony on Friday. So we'll see how the hockey arena in Milan is going to be, if it's up to the snuff and can handle the games. Tonight is going to be some of the last games in the NHL before the Olympic break. So we'll see what happens. I know there's an outdoor game right now, which is happening in Tampa, and already the Tampa Bay Lightning scored off the opening faceoff, and my Bruins are down 1-0. So that's something that I'm going to be watching all throughout the evening. But anyway, that's my final word. I'm a big Olympic fan. I enjoy watching the Olympics, but hockey is also one of my favorite sports. But I'm very worried about how the hockey tournament is going to be going, especially in the substandard arena. That should have been that. Why they didn't know this and why they didn't fix this. They have plenty of time to do this, but they just didn't. They just said, we're just going to continue. So it's really a bad look on the organizers. It's a bad look for the IOC for not sanctioning the organizers. And it's also the NHL is going to have to go into this, and they're going to try and put on a brave face. But I'm sure that Gary Bettman is seething underneath and privately. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. Quick one. I hate to be talking about something like this, but it's very hard to ignore in this world. The Epstein files are, released a couple of days ago, and we are starting to see a lot of the names that are, starting to pop up. And it's not just limited to, your, usual suspects, the MAGA grifting politicians and influencers and so forth. We're starting to see some of the names in the world of sports pop up. Giants owner Steve Tisch was linked. He had to release a statement that reeks of something that ChatGPT wrote about, which was obviously being widely panned and criticized for. Josh Harris's name is linked, 76 owner, and then the owner of the Washington Commanders name has also been linked as well. Let's see. Randy Levine, the Yankees president, was also linked in that as well. We know that Trump has always been a New Yorker and has been to many Yankees games, even this past year. There is a photo of him sitting next to Levine as well. Casey Wasserman, the LA Olympic Committee chairman's name has also been linked to that as well. Woody Johnson's.
I'll say this about Casey Wasserman. I've heard rumors about him in the past. Not necessarily about this, but they were not very good ones. So, so for him to be named in this, and now again, not everybody. It doesn't necessarily they're linked with criminal activity. Let's just say that first of all, but they're It's just the fact that they have been named. And also, you pointed out to me also too that a wrestler, she has since committed suicide.
Ashley, the former wrestler, I'm going to share
Ashley
that
Massaro.
one. Because,
Yeah,
who unfortunately committed suicide back in 2019. I'm going to share that one here.
Ashley Massaro. She's well known in the wrestling community.
Right.
She was a deep. She was also a brief champion for a while. She alleges on a trip, and it's also talked about in the Epstein files that she went on a trip to a U.S. Army base where she alleges that she was raped by an Army doctor. Nothing came of it, unfortunately. She, she's had a lot of demons, and as you mentioned, in 2019, she committed suicide. Our hearts go out to her family, but again, as someone who's had issues with my mental health, again, if you have thoughts about suicide, please call the suicide hotline. We hate to hear about things like this. But Ashley Massaro, she was mentioned in the Epstein files, and again, a lot of people who are mentioned, not necessarily accused of a crime, but it doesn't look good for a lot, especially Casey Wasserman, who's been the face of the organizing committee for LA 28, and the committee on the Olympics is supposed to be in Los Angeles in 2028, and he of course has been courting Donald Trump to make appearances out there in Los Angeles in 2028. So we'll see what happens. But again, a lot of, as you mentioned, not necessarily a lot of political people, but a lot of sports people and people with sports connections have been mentioned in the Epstein file. And, it's a million pages were basically released on Friday, as was as by the law that was signed by Trump himself. But he said he had nothing to hide. But there's some things in there. We'll find out as more information comes out.
Yeah, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. There's going to be more people like you never expected that will likely be linked. It's not just limited to sports. It could be current and former players. That could be linked to it in the coming days and coming weeks. I just saw the name of Bono and Phil Collins. The singer from had a wildly massive, successful solo career as well as with the band Genesis. I am so shocked and I'm so disappointed. But in reality, I remember when Charles Barkley said, kids shouldn't look up to the athletes as a kind of a role model. And I understand why now, because of course, Barkley himself was never considered an angel or a very good person, to be honest. And now you can say the same thing about not just the athletes, but the entertainers and actors and actresses that we grew up watching and supporting them, or even bought their merch, gone to their concert, joined their fan clubs and so forth when we were growing up. Those are the same types of people that that we grew up watching and then loving their work are now just it's just so sad and embarrassing. But I think a lot of us maybe need to understand that there could be more in the coming weeks, and we ended up having to be sad and angry about them.
Well, again, a lot of these people named not necessarily for any wrongdoing. I mean, the earlier when
but the fact is their name is being mentioned is a huge
I understand that, Stephen, but again, the Clintons have been mentioned in there as well. But again, no wrongdoing has been. They are not accused of any wrongdoing. But again, just because their name, you have to be careful of guilt by association. But are we disappointed? Yes, absolutely. I mean, like I said, Casey Wasserman's name is in there. Someone I've known about. Again, I've heard rumors about this man for a long time. Again, not necessarily good stuff, but again, Tish. Again, they're just emails. A lot of them, and Elon Musk as well. A lot of their names have been included in emails, and their emails have been included in here. But again, until we hear stuff that have been total. Until we hear some damning evidence, I think we have to be careful about the accusations. I know you said about Phil Collins and Bono, but again, you have to be careful about guilt by association. So just because their names are in there doesn't necessarily means that they have been any wrongdoing. They just could have been sending some emails to, again, the Epstein files are absolutely hideous. Epstein was a very bad man. We all know this. Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman who helped to set up a lot of this information, and there are the victims there as well who we have to consider as well. But again, we have to be careful about trying to do, just because a person's name is in there doesn't necessarily mean they did any wrongdoing. So we have to be careful about that. So we have to be careful about what we say and all the information in there. So just wanted to make that up.
But it's understandable there, Sorry.
Yeah, and we also don't want to get sued. So we have to we're trying to we're also trying to just stress to the fact that, you know, people are innocent until proven guilty.
And it's understandable. That's fine. That's fine. I'm not here to make baseless accusations, but the grand scheme of things, and I've said this before, all of these things are interconnected. Okay, you have presidents of the world, prime ministers of the world, the politicians beneath them, the business people, you know, the tech bros now, and then you have, you know, athletes, entertainers, one notch below, who are willing to, cower to those people or get themselves mixed up in it, you know, or sometimes willingly or unwillingly. And unfortunately, I understand that we're starting to, you know, we have to, you know, reserve our judgment. But again, what Charles Barkley said kind of resonates well about, you know, not looking up to athletes and then maybe entertainers now, you know, because obviously these are the people, even if they're not on the Epstein file, you know, they have done some hideous things. We know about Sean P. Diddy Combs and his own version of troubles. I mean, Jay-Z and Pusha T, his name was even in it. You know, it's quite shocking. So, you know, I think if you're a parent, you should be horrified about, you know, what your kids are listening, and of course, you know, censoring them or, you know, forcing them not to listen to them is not the isn't going to do them any good. But it's understandable that the people that we rooted for or grew up watching and supporting them turn out to be, you know, maybe in given time, you know, they're not the person that we thought that they were, and their kids will eventually find out the same thing as they grow older too. So that's just my thoughts on that one. Sorry about that, Ken.
That's okay. Well, that's going to wrap up the show for this week. We're going to be back probably next Saturday with the next edition. We will keep you up to date as to what's going on. You know, keep it here on our platforms, whether it be X or Blue Sky. And Steve and I will let you know. Most likely will be next Saturday, somewhere around 5 or 6 o'clock, and we'll do our Super Bowl picks at that time. I will give you a preview. It will not be the New England Patriots. I will not pick I will never pick the Patriots on anything. But do you have a little sneak preview of that for next week?
Absolutely. You know, well, we'll definitely have our, we'll keep you updated on when we do our show. I got to work on Saturday evening as well, so we might move it up a little bit early to give myself a little bit of time to get the work off, of course. But as always, thanks for the 82 people who came to watch our show. As always, enjoy your Sunday evening, and we will see you next week. Time to be determined, but we'll definitely keep you updated on our X and Blue Sky platform for the next show. Until then, have a wonderful week. And Ken, thanks for joining me once again for an incredible conversation. And thanks as always to you.